I go to Rav Shabbos. This week's Parsha is Parshas Shelach. Parshas Shelach, we have primarily the story of the Meraglim, the people who went into Eretz Yisrael. They were supposed to go check out the land and fall in love with the land and see the land that they were destined for, Eretz Yisrael. We, of course, know that did not end up happening. Klal Yisrael, the Meraglim ended up speaking Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael, perhaps the greatest sin ever committed by the Jewish people. This was a terrible sin. This was a terrible sin that was committed. And that is primarily what the Parsha is about. But at the end of the Parsha, we have the mitzvah of tzitzis. And that's what we have in Kriya Shema, the third Parsha of Kriya Shema, the mitzvah of the Parsha of tzitzis. Is there a connection between the story of the Meraglim and the mitzvah of tzitzis? I believe that there is. I wanted to share a lesson that I think that we could all learn from it. If we think about the Meraglim, what was the problem about the Meraglim? The Meraglim came into Eretz Yisrael and they saw what was in front of them. They saw the giants, they saw the big walls, the fortified cities that they wouldn't be able to conquer. They looked at what was in front of them and they turned back and they said, we can't do this. What was the problem with that? The problem with that was that they didn't see the big picture. They didn't see that this is an Eretz Yisrael. They didn't see that this was the land they were destined for, an Eretz Zavas Chalavu Dvash. They couldn't keep the big picture in mind. They saw what they saw, but it was short-sighted. The mitzvah of tzitzis tells us not to do that, not to fall into that trap. Because in the Parsha of tzitzis it says, that you'll see it and you'll remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem. I think that what could darshan from this is Re'isam Oisai is Belashon Yachid, an individual. When you see one thing in front of you, Uzachartem es kol. Try to keep in your mind everything, the big picture. Don't just focus on the one thing that's in front of you. You have to keep the big picture in mind. If you have a task to do, it's good to focus on the next task that you have to do. But when you're confronted with a situation, you have to keep the big picture in mind. That's life. You have to always try to think, is this something that's going to be good for me going forward? If the Meraglim would have done that, maybe they wouldn't have come back with the bad news. They would have seen the tall walls of the city. Maybe they could have thought about it and say, hey, we're destined for this land. We could take advantage of these big walls and fortified cities after we conquer it. But they didn't do that. They said, no, it's too much and we can't do it, because they only saw what was right in front of them. They failed to see the big picture. The mitzvah of tzitzis tells us, Ure'isem oisai, if you see it, a singular thing, if you see a singular thing, Uzachartem es kol. Remember everything. Keep in mind the big picture. In life, a lot of times that's what we have to do. If you have to make a decision, a lot of times you have to think of the big picture. How is this going to affect me in the long run? Not just the short term of what's right in front of you. May we all be zeicha to do that and taka go in the ways of Hashem, vasisam oisam, and do all the mitzvahs of Hashem. Have a good Shabbos.